The recording should now be going. It might help if I actually put us on the Ophion screen, though. There we go. All
That
right.
move to resume our Pathfinder discussion now.
No more Pathfinder discussion. Welcome back, guys.
This is a Pathfinder class starship.
No, bad. Welcome back, guys, to, I believe this is our 16th Ophion episode. Look at me, I'm on top of what numbers are. I only really have kind of a fun slash flavor announcement. As some of you on Twitch, if you're watching this live, or if you're catching this on YouTube later, I've kind of opened up a channel Discord server. Honestly, I don't really expect too much out of it, but hey, you never know. Maybe, 30 fans will jump in the Discord channel and it'll be a good time. If you want to find the link, it should be right below in the FAQ section of my Twitch channel. And anyone's free to join. Other than that, I don't think we have any announcements unless anyone has any of their own. So, yeah, let's have Panek. I believe you have our log for today.
Yep. First Officer's Log, Stardate 55115.2. For the time being, the Ophion is docked with Deep Space Daedalus as we transfer personnel and repair the damage we obtained from the rogue Tal Shiar faction. Starfleet intelligence has been reticent about what has happened to the captured trilithium warhead and the agents. They have, however, reached out to notify the captain and me that a recording of our battle at the Cora system was captured via a nearby listening post. I have forwarded this recording to Captain Scko and Lieutenant Shatsu for tactical breakdown and analysis. I look forward to moving past this crisis and returning to our mission of exploration. Our newest additions to the senior staff will undoubtedly be helpful in this endeavor. We have recently received official transfer documents for Lieutenant Commander John Maddock and Senior Chief Arya Hylong. Chief Hylong will fit in very well with stellar cartography, as we'll be back to unraveling the mysteries of the Sabine Expanse. As for Lieutenant Commander Maddock, he has been given the position of Engineering Advisor. I've assigned him to initial work on the further integration of his Chronoton sensor array, as well as an overhaul of the Ophion's temperamental EPS conduits. Given his penchant for prototyping new designs, however, I expect him to work closely with Lieutenant Locke. I suspect that we won't be free from Tal Shiar influence just because we've returned to unexplored space. Romulans are prideful, and their recent defeats at our hands will have left them with a bitter taste in their mouths. Attaché Zarid believes that the recent change in Romulan leadership will lead to unprecedented cooperation between the Federation and the Empire. My intuition tells me that such change does not come easily to the Romulans, and it does not last long. End log.
Okay. Very good. So, as you may have gathered from both his log and the fact that we're showing up at DSD, you guys are, in fact, at DSD at the moment. You're not really, quote-unquote, attached to the station. You're just kind of in orbit. There's some last-minute personnel changes. There's some last-minute kind of supply runs, things of that nature. But we start the session proper with Commander Beckett. You are in sickbay, giving a routine physical to one of the many crewmen that are aboard the Ophion. And that's when you get a message from your lovely nurse. So Vara just kind of taps her comm badge and says, Vara to Commander Beckett.
Go ahead, Vara.
Could you get a med kit and join us in the duck? There's something that requires your attention.
You can't handle whatever it is?
No, we really need your help up here. And she sounds almost a little bit worried.
Okay, I will be there as soon as I can get there.
Okay.
I'll excuse myself from the crewman. Tell him to come back at the same time tomorrow, and we'll finish up his required physical.
Okay. So the crewman, of course, nods his head and promises he'll be back later. which frees you up to run up to the duck. So where is the duck? There is the duck. So, Beckett, when you finally arrive at the duck and the door opens, you see there's a lot of people in here, and most of them are in dress uniform, including Captain Skull. And this is Skull's scene, so I'm going to let him run it.
Welcome, Commander Beckett. You're late to your own party, a little underdressed, but we can work with it.
I didn't realize that there was going to be a party. Or is this an intervention?
Oh, this is absolutely a celebration, Commander. Attention on deck.
Everyone snaps to attention.
Commander Michael Beckett, please step forward. Commander Michael Beckett, for showing outstanding courage and tactical acumen in the face of extreme odds against the rogue Tal Shiar, for displaying command qualities that exceed your rank and position, and for acting with honor, integrity, and humility for this previous mission and the several missions that have preceded it. It is my honor to award you with the Star Cross. It is our continued pleasure to have you among our crew. And I will pull out a small metal box and pin a shiny golden star to your chest.
With a rather large smile, he'll extend his hand. Thank you, sir.
Now, as
And a
this
round
is
of
your
polite
party,
clapping from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
of course. Now, this is your party. If you wish to make a small speech, or if you wish to get right to the drinks, you're more than welcome to do so.
Well, I kind of at a loss for words, which is rare, but thank you for this, and thank you to the crew of Gamma Shift for accepting me, and yeah, let's drink.
So, kind of to punctuate the Gamma remark, Lieutenant Commander Tai is here, and she kind of raises her glass and goes, "Here, here!"
I'll raise it.
Yeah, and everyone else follows suit, and there's a round of clinking. So small sidebar here, in case anyone is confused. So recently, literally Thursday, Modiphius released the command source book. And in the source book, there are awards. And these awards confer a mechanical benefit at the cost of reputation. The Star Cross, for example, allows Beckett now to, for one task during an adventure, he can double his focus range. So, say, for example, he's doing a medicine-related check and it applies one of his focuses. He would have a crit range of 1 to 10 instead of 1 to 5. It's a really good award.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty freaking nice. I haven't even looked at the brand new command supplement from Modiphius. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. It's on page 98 when you get a chance to look at it. But yeah, I'm assuming, of course, that this party is very, maybe rambunctious isn't quite the word I want to use, but it is definitely a nice party. I would normally have people roll constitution checks to see who gets drunk onto the table, but I think given the nature of the revelry, I can say words today, the hard liquor doesn't come out unless someone really wants it. So it's all synthahale. Or synthahol.
Possibly some champagne.
Yeah, some champagne as well.
Yeah. Now that the official speech has gone off, or finished, I'll just wander up to the doctor a couple drinks in and go, I have met some very dangerous doctors in my time. You are probably by far the worst of them, but I'm pleased to call you my friend and that you're on my crew.
I'll tip my drink, in motioning like for him to do the same and clink glasses. I'll accept that. The lack of doctors on ships is what pulled me away from sitting at a base somewhere or sitting on a hospital ship. So I'm glad that the decision to leave behind a very safe hospital and come work on this ship wasn't a bad decision.
Absolutely. I really hope that we will continue to enjoy the fruits of that bad decision for many years to come.
As do I. Who do I need to blame for putting my nurse up to not being completely truthful to me?
Well, Mr. Panek and I kind of gave her the next couple shifts off. Kind of pulled rank.
Gotcha. So it was an order for her to not tell the whole truth to her senior officer.
Yes, call this...
And I'll kind of wink.
He was due for a change in duty rotation anyway.
Makes sense.
Oh dear. All right. So unless anyone else wants to do a little bit of small talk, we will skip ahead a little bit because I honestly don't know if we're going to be able to get everything in this session, but we'll see. So sometime after the party in the Duck, with you all kind of, going about the rest of your day, the rest of your shift, etc. Captain Skull, you get a message from Admiral Thesso. He would like to meet you in his office on the station if you have a moment.
How far or how long after the party is this?
I would say this has at least been a couple of hours, so even if you were stone dead drunk, you would have probably recovered by now, either on your own or thanks to the doctor.
Yeah, or the Trill.
Or the Trill, yeah. Can't forget the symbiote.
Symbiote, I'm drinking for two. Yep, I'll head out and leave the ship in Panek's capable hands.
Okay.
Hi, Captain.
Alright, so we go to Thesso's ready room. As you step into Thesso's ready office, he kind of nods and motions for you to take a seat.
Absolutely. I'll enter, stand at attention, and then take the seat.
Oh. Thank you for coming, Mr. Skull. I've been reviewing the Ophion's projected flight plan that your pilot has submitted. I just have one question, and he kind of taps the little computer to his right on the desk, and on the screen behind him, you see the star map, complete with the projected path on it. And it zooms in on the red symbol, like the closest symbol you guys were planning on going to.
All right.
And he says, I thought you might find this interesting. The Z74J system, which would be where this symbol seems to indicate, we've picked up a massive amount of tachyons in the system. Now, granted, these are long-range scans, but, well, to put it bluntly, we're a little bit worried that this could be indicative of a Romulan fleet buildup, or, well, given your track record, I don't think I really need to go into too much detail about what this could be.
Other than a potential Romulan source, any other interesting stellar cartography or stellar phenomenon in the area that could potentially be a source?
Honestly, not that we've been able to detect. You would be the first Starfleet vessel to head out that way. Of course, we tried reaching out to the Cardassians, since they were the closest empire of sorts, but, given the whole Dominion War and the sacking of Cardassia, even now the records are still just kind of either lost or burned, or, there just isn't a whole lot of help out of Cardassia at the moment.
Very well. And what's the current status of the other ships in the area? Out of character, I've kind of forgotten their names, but...
You mean I have to look it up too. You mean the Aegis and the Connecticut?
Correct, yes.
Thesso kind of smiles and says, well, the Connecticut has found another nebula, which kind of matches the ones we seem to keep finding in this expanse. They're currently doing a very thorough scan of the area. The Aegis hasn't really found a whole lot yet. They came across a wandering black hole, which I have, according to their report, was quite a harrowing experience, but, they weathered it nicely.
I am pleased that they are continuing to explore the expanse in our absence, and look forward to getting out there and seeing what can be found.
Indeed.
As we near the purple icon way up close to Breen space, has Starfleet intelligence gotten any more intel on what the Breen have been up to post-war?
That's a good question, both out of character and in character. Honestly, Captain, the intel we have out of the Breen Confederacy, they are a confederacy, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think they're hegemony, either or.
Yeah, either or. We haven't had a whole lot of contact with them. They are, to kind of phrase it in another way, they are sort of like the Tholians. We're not actively in conflict with them, but we're also not actively trying to associate or really interact with them. So, honestly, it's a big question mark at the moment.
Very well. Something for us to keep in mind as we get closer to their space.
Indeed. Well, that's all I had, Captain, unless you had anything of your own.
No, sir. I'll just submit the updated officer records. That includes Beckett's recently given medal. Oh. And snap a quick attention and head back to the ship.
Okay. So, again, to kind of speed things along a little bit, unless anyone had any pressing RP they wanted to do. In which case, just interrupt me. So it probably takes you all about 30 minutes to get everyone back onto the Ophion and for you to more or less set course and jump to warp towards the Z74J system. And the travel time I had calculated out is it's going to be about a week. And I did have one particular scene that was requested. So we'll do that first, but of course, as you guys have come to know, if you have anything you want to do during the travel time, you are, of course, welcome to it. But first, as it just so happens, we have another Beckett scene. So, Mr. Beckett, you're once again in sickbay. It's literally the same ensign that's getting his physical. And I think it's probably worth noting that you're at the end or near the end of your shift when Panek does send a communicate to you. And since this is Panek's scene, I will let him flavor it as he wishes.
Panek to Commander Beckett.
I will sigh very heavily to the ensign in front of me. Then hit my comm badge. Go ahead, XO.
Report to Holodeck 1 immediately.
Is this for another party? I'm kind of in the middle of something.
Your presence is requested immediately, Commander.
I'll look at the ensign, shrug, and tell him that if the XO gives him any crap about not having his physical, to remind the XO that it was his fault that the physical isn't done, and then ask the ensign to come back the next day at the same time.
Okay. The ensign tries not to crack a smile, but fails horribly and says, "Of course, sir."
And then I guess I will head to the holodeck. On the way, I will ask the computer what program is currently running in that holodeck.
Okay. Panek, it's your program. What would the computer say?
Currently running the Battle of Naseby.
Okay, I will head that way, I guess.
Okay. So you, of course, in due time, come across the doors of the holodeck. Do you just walk right in? Do you do anything with the little interface on the wall before you head in? What's the call?
Um, yeah, I'm gonna use the I'll use the panel on the wall to find out um, what side Panek is currently trying to portray.
The new model army. I'm currently playing Oliver Cromwell.
Wonderful. Okay, I will walk in.
Okay. So I wasn't able to find a nice map for this. We're gonna have to use theater of the mind. But you walk in, and of course, you are treated to the scene of a battle. And almost immediately, as you step in and the door closes and the arch kind of disappears, a black knight comes rushing at you with his sword overhead. He is about to cleave you in two.
With the calm and demeanor of someone who has performed multiple open heart surgeries, I will stand there and let him swing at me.
Okay. Panek, is this where you want to intervene or not yet?
Yeah, I'll intervene and I'll
All right.
come in and kind of deflect his attack.
All right. So Panek comes out of almost seemingly nowhere and deflects the Black Knight's blow. And Panek, why don't you go ahead and describe a little bit about what you're wearing?
I'm wearing a steel-plated armor with a two-handed bastard sword or something like that. I haven't really looked anything up, but yeah, he's fully decked out. But something tells you maybe that it's not holographically projected on him, that he spent the time to replicate them.
So you went from Vulcan Ninja to British Knight?
Ninja Commander?
Never mind. So what is the point of bringing me to the middle of the English Civil War in 1645?
I read somewhere that humans tend to bond over such activities like this. Was the setting I chose inappropriate? I thought the simulation would appeal to the barbaric nature of humanity.
Well, I mean, it's I guess I still kind of lost as to why you chose here for a bonding exercise between you and me.
I was unable to decide based on your record a more apropos setting, so I had the computer choose one from the popular choice list.
Ah, so you think I'm British?
Quite honestly, Commander, I'm unable to tell.
Well, I guess eventually, somewhere, my background and my history would probably come from somewhere in Europe. Probably a little bit more east than England. But no, actually, I don't really hold anywhere on Earth as home other than it's humanity's home.
Then you should have no deference about this setting. And while this is going on, we haven't paused it, so I'm still deflecting people, but very calmly with a calm voice talking to him.
Right. I mean, it's actually kind of interesting from even a medical point of view that Panek's not really even sweating. Like, he's fending off opponents and he's doing it with style.
I am looking very not impressed, and at this point have folded my arms across my chest and am just watching him play act as a 1700s British human,
Mm-hmm.
and just watching him go. trying not to smile.
I've left the position of Sir Thomas Fairfax open and available to you. But if this setting does not appeal to you, you could choose another.
No, I guess this is fine. You do know that I'm a physician, not a soldier, right?
That didn't
And I
stop you.
I will mock Vulcans by raising one eyebrow.
That pacifistic ideology did not stop you from attacking the Romulans when we were engaged with them.
True.
And these are
But-
just hard light simulations.
This is true. I fight when I need to, not against holograms. As much as everybody thinks that I hate holograms because I hate emergency medical holograms, does not mean that I hate all holograms. Unless it's a Klingon that decides to sing opera in my quarters. And then I will blink, looking at him, and raise my eyebrow again.
Pinnock just, nonchalantly doesn't look at him. He looks at someone else, please. Very well, Commander. I apologize for bringing you down here. Then I was merely attempting to engage in an extracurricular activity, in an attempt to bring the crew closer together and to get a better idea of my fellow crewmates. Computer end program, and then it's just like me standing there in armor, just kind of awkwardly out of place.
I applaud you for your intention. I don't. I mean, you have access to the records. I don't come to the holodeck like almost at all. Or if I do, it's a nice park and I go for a jog. Now, if you'd like to go for jogs after hours and have a little physical exercise without... And I just kind of motion to him dressed in 1700s English armor.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look down at it. Yes, a change of wardrobe would probably be best.
Well, tell you what. Why don't we meet tomorrow after Alpha shift is over, and we can go for a run. And please don't call me at this time tomorrow because, Ensign Rogers has been trying to get his physical that you are quite fond of reminding him that he hasn't had done, and I keep getting interrupted.
I will make note of that, Commander. Thank you.
Why don't we meet back here tomorrow about the same time?
We'll do.
All right. Yay, running buddies! All right. So, of course, that all happens during your trip out there.
Basic social interaction succeeded.
Yay! So, does anyone else have a scene they want to have take place during your travel time?
I don't have a scene, but
Okay.
I would like to make a roll on my extended task of putting a Type 1 phaser into a medical tricorder.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and do that. And I forget, what did I have you roll for that? Was that control plus science or control plus engineering?
Control plus engineering makes more sense.
Okay. Yeah, that's what you need. Go ahead and roll me your work track.
Yeah, it's like 4 plus my engineering.
2 plus your engineering.
I knew it was an even number.
I'm gonna say with freaking 7, you actually finish the project by the time you arrive at Z74J.
Fun thing in the arsenal. Then I move on to my next whatever project.
Which actually, sorry, someone was saying something.
Sorry, I was just going to quip that not with a roll like that, not only has he put a phaser in a tricorder, he can put a tricorder in a phaser.
Ah. Actually, this reminds me. So, kind of in a small segue. So, Captain, you're in your ready room. You're just kind of reviewing logs, going over reports, etc., etc. When a torpedo casing just beams into the room in front of your desk.
Is it a familiar torpedo casing?
Yeah, it's one from the Ophion.
Is it beeping or emitting any sort of energy signal whatsoever?
No, it's just kind of sitting there.
Computer.
Of course,
Where
the
did
computer
this-
beeps.
Where did this torpedo casing come from?
It reports Launch Bay 1.
Captain to Murthrin.
Murthrin here, Captain. Go ahead.
What's going on in Launch Bay 1?
Do I know what's going on in Launch Bay 1?
No, you have no idea.
Then
I can find out for you, Captain. I'm in main engineering at the moment.
very well. Then I would like you and Miss Shatsu to please report to my ready room immediately. There is a torpedo that's just materialized in here.
There's a slight pause. We'll be right up, Captain.
Yes, please.
Lieutenant Shatsu?
So Shatsu's on the bridge, and she immediately just kind of steps in, looks at the torpedo, and goes, that's a new one.
I'm beginning to fortify my... I'm beginning to flip my desk over so that I can hide behind it in case this thing goes off. I mean, it's not going to help, but it's making me feel better.
Yeah, and however long it takes for me to grab my tools and get from main engineering up to the ready room later, Murthrin sort of slides in through the doors.
Yeah, you probably show up within 5 or 10 minutes. And yeah, the torpedo's just sitting there.
Okay, that is alarming.
You're
he
telling
sort of
me.
And he gets out his tricorder and starts scanning it to see if it's armed and just seeing if it's safe to crack it open and disarm it.
Okay. Roll me a control plus science. Difficulty 0. So, free momentum.
Yep, I get the 1 success.
Yes, all right. You guys have 1 momentum. As it turns out, this torpedo has had its payload removed. It is simply just a torpedo casing.
Okay, good news, Captain. This thing does not have an active warhead in it. It's just the casing.
Why do I have a feeling that someone's trying to make a point?
I don't know. I mean, did you figure out where it came from?
Loading Bay 1. Computer.
Murthrin to loading bay 1.
So,
Lieutenant Locke here.
Yep.
Is this important, Commander? I'm in the middle of an experiment and I may have lost something.
Might that... Sorry, this is the captain here, Mr. Locke. Might that something be a torpedo casing?
Yes, how did you know? Oh, crap.
It's about 2
Yeah,
meters...
yes, you may have just given the captain a mild panic attack.
Sorry, I'm testing out a folded space transporter that moves things through subspace, and it was supposed to move it 2 meters. It didn't.
I would think 200 is about the distance between here and loading bay 1, Lieutenant. As I fumble through my now overturned desk looking for a hypo spray, and I just jam it into the side of my neck, and I noticeably calm down a bit.
It shouldn't be armed.
No, it's not.
It might be slightly radioactive. This was why the
Yep,
concept
Murthrin
process
immediately
being done.
scans it for radiation.
That's fine. Acceptable levels.
Yeah, nothing serious, Captain.
Very well. Mr. Locke, I'm just going to go to the bridge. I'm going to come back into my ready room in about 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, if I'm feeling generous. And that torpedo casing had better be out. I don't care how.
Aye, sir.
I'm just going to look at Murthrin and Shatsu and say, thank you kindly for your timely arrival. If this had been an actual torpedo, we might have been killed.
Shatsu just kind of laughs a little bit and then realizes how serious Skull's being. Oh, sorry, sir. I just was kind of musing to myself that if someone had managed to sneak up on us at high warp and beam something aboard, we'd have bigger problems.
Seemingly. Let's table that, and we'll see what Locke... Hopefully, whatever Locke can do will have actual benefits instead of just misplacing torpedoes.
Yeah, honestly, sir, from a tactical perspective, beaming torpedoes directly into another ship, it's not a bad tactical strategy. Helps you hit the system you're hoping for.
Not agreed. Very agreed. Now, I'm just going to get my pulse rate down a bit, and then I will join you both on the bridge in a minute or two.
Understood, sir.
Can I interject in this scene?
Of course.
Beckett will communicate into the captain. Sick bay to Captain Skull.
Skull here, go ahead.
Should I be worried? I just had 3 different alarms go off about your heart rate. Is everything okay?
Just be thankful that the alarm that would indicate a flat line did not go off. You have Locke to thank for and to think about when we started this journey out to the system. I was about to tell you that I might be ready to discontinue the use of my medication. I may not be ready to discontinue the use of my medication just yet.
Will do, Captain. I will send another batch up to you, and I will take something to drink down to Locke. That was pretty good. And then I'll end the communication.
I swear, they're either... I don't know what's going to kill me, Murthrin. If it's going to be the crew's competence or the crew's experimentation. Or it could just be the Romulans.
Honestly, the Romulans would probably be the least stressful option.
At least we can accept that if you die for the Romulans, you're at least dying for some reason.
And
might not be
as
a reason
Captain
we
Skull
agree with.
leaves Merthyr and sort of turns to Shatsu and goes, so I'm perfectly happy to just leave Locke to lug this thing back down to engineering on his own.
Yeah, this is his problem.
Yep. And we turn and leave the room.
Yep. I'm glad we got that one in. Locke floated the idea to me, and I found it hilarious. So yeah. Anyone else have any actual scenes they want to play out before we get to the full adventure? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Then we shall
Hold
shift.
the red shirt and the plastic trilby.
Alright, so we're going to shift to the bridge. And I think everyone's there. Yeah, so everyone, it's alpha shift again. And let me adjust the stream a little bit here.
It's always alpha shift. We're the best.
Of course, it's like turbo lifts. You're always at the appropriate shift for events. So as you approach the Z-74J system, you're a few light years out. Locke, you at sensors are picking up a strange starship traveling at low warp. It matches no known configuration and doesn't seem to be using traditional propulsion methods.
Captain, I'm detecting an unfamiliar spaceship silhouette. Doesn't conform to any known species, and I don't know what's making it go.
Are they traveling faster than light?
I assume that was implied.
Mm-hmm.
Very well. How far out from the system are we?
Out of character, if I have my numbers properly, you are 3 light years out.
Okay.
So We're still a couple, several minutes away from the system, sir.
Yeah, very well. Drop us. Yes,
Shall I attempt to hail them, Captain?
absolutely. Drop us out of warp a safe distance away. We don't want to drop in aggressively close, and then once we establish range, open hailing frequencies.
All right. So, of course, Sona brings the Ophion to a stop. And as it just so happens, the ship that you found on sensors also drops at a warp fairly close by. And what you see on the view screen is something like this. Yay, handouts. So, kind of to kind of describe what you're seeing, that this is a massive solar sail kind of configuration. As you can tell, it's got the kind of circular sail that picks up energy of all types, usually solar wind, eddies, things of that nature, and a much smaller kind of, I guess you would call it pod or something that's, the actual crew sits in.
Well, we are heading to one of the red marks. The red mark could actually indicate that some sort of burgeoning life. This could be indigenous to the species, to the planet we're approaching.
Very well.
Sorry, go ahead, Captain.
No, I was just going to order open hailing frequencies, but if you have something to interject, Commander, please do.
Well, I assume you've updated your senior staff on the briefing you got from Admiral Thessa.
Correct, for the increased tachyons.
Mm-hmm.
With that lock to make me scan for them.
Sure. Locke, if you want to give me a reason plus science, and of course the ship will assist with sensors plus science, and this is just a difficulty 0. Free momentum. All right, so that's already 1 momentum for you. Who's rolling for the ship?
I will.
Okay. Okay, so just the 1 momentum. So Locke, you're able to tell that there's about 5 life signs in this ship, and you're also able to determine that there seems to be some sort of tachyon generator that's aimed at the sails. I'll give this to you for free without a question. So this would remind you of a certain voyage by one Benjamin Scko in 2371, the one where Scko made the journey from DS9 all the way to Cardassia in a solar sailor. Obviously, you're looking at a more advanced version of that, because it's able to go up to what you're guessing is a maximum of warp 3. So, big deal as far as solar sail technology is concerned.
So, Captain, looks like it is having some sort of tachyon generator, so it is self-propelling itself, even without the solar winds that power other kind of solar sail vessels.
Fascinating. So they basically invented a jar of wind and pointed it at a sail.
Effectively, yes.
That's...
Somewhere behind him, Murthrin's eye twitches.
That's actually quite ingenious. Well, open hailing frequencies. Let's see if they're willing to talk.
Okay. So, in fact, they do. So before you on the view screen is an individual that meets the stereotype of a wise sage. They have an impressive white beard, striking lines about the face, and eyes that look as if they've seen many a thing. They almost look human, but that's when you notice the crew behind them. So, much like a centaur out of myth and legend, these aliens seem to possess a non-humanoid lower half. More specifically, that of a scorpion scaled up several times. Their carapaces are all different sorts of colors, and most of their stingers are either wrapped or in a sheath of sorts. And I am an equal opportunity consumer of the art, so I actually had 2 friends of mine do a little bit of art So first I'll show you Green's kind of take of the species. So this is how Green kind of conceptualized them. As you can see, it's, pretty much as I described, kind of a humanoid upper half, scorpion lower. And then you have Monorus's. His is a little bit more detailed, and that's what he came up with. Now, of course, you are free to, flavor them as much as you want, take liberties with their design, etc. But I thought a little bit of art might go a long way to kind of communicate how different they are. But yeah.
I'm liking the one with the inverted eye colors and the almost Goa'uld jewelry design.
Yeah. I would say that most of the... there's 2 females that are on this ship. Well, at least that you see on screen, behind who you assume is the captain. And they all seem to have the black sclera, which is interesting from a medical point of view, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
Just as I stand up to do standard greetings, I'm just going to do a quick tappity on the console at my screen on my seat, just to send an alert down to Beckett's office saying, "Hey, you're going to want to look at this." Then I'm going to stand up and go, "Greetings. I am Captain Barton Scko, representing the United Federation of Planets on the USS Ophion."
So the gentleman smiles at you and says, "This is Hoplite Phaon. It is good to meet you, Captain Scko of the USS Ophion. I believe this is the first recorded instance of our 2 cultures interacting."
Agreed. We have recently begun exploring this sector of space, and we're very intrigued by the energy emissions that we detected in your system. We were curious as to their origins and seem to have found that you have developed a completely different and novel means of space travel than we have considered.
Ah, you must mean our solar sail technology. Well, yes, I'd be happy to go into details about that. I don't know what your objective might be in the greater scope of things, but we Skorpi, Skorpi, we Skorpi are on a mission of exploration. And there are, at any given time, hundreds of hoplites like myself that are exploring the stars.
In the background, Murthrin is looking very resolutely at his console and trying not to smirk.
I'm assuming there's a reason, which we'll get to eventually. Mr. Farron, I believe that our goals are in alignment on this, as Starfleet is... First priority is to seek out new life, new civilizations, and to explore where no one has been before. Perhaps we could invite you and your crew aboard for a... what's the phrase I'm looking for? For a cultural exchange. Or if we are close to your planet, perhaps meeting you and your chain of command or your local government is more in your preference.
Well, he thinks about it for a moment and says, well, the trip back to Scko would take about 9 days at our maximum velocity, so yes, let's do this culture exchange that you speak of. Where should we dock with you?
Now, I'm just going to quickly look at Locke and Murthrin and go,
Murthrin's going to pipe up and go, point of order, our doors have a maximum width of, rattles off the width of a Star Trek door.
Mm-hmm.
The screen's not really giving us a sense of scale. Are you gonna be able to fit through those?
Phaon just kind of laughs and says, it'll be a little bit of a tight squeeze, but I think we can manage.
Can they retract the sails?
Yes, we can.
If you can retract your sails, we can bring you into our cargo bay much easier.
Actually, how big is the sailor?
Yeah, I was going to say, so I have a scale of 3 written down for them. Obviously, that's with the solar sail deployed.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Actually,
conceivably...
where's their docking port?
Yeah, I was going to say, so conceivably you could get them in your bay, but it would take up pretty much the entire thing.
I think
I'm
it would
assuming
be-
the Prometheus class has a docking port of some kind.
Yeah, it's got one on deck 5 from what I remember.
Very well. Very well, Hoplite. If you could hold position, we will maneuver and then extend a docking port.
Excellent. I look forward to meeting you in person. And the view screen cuts off.
All right. I'm just going to look around the bridge and go. I was unaware that centaurs existed. Thoughts, people?
Quite coincidental, though.
Yeah,
this
Murthrin
is-
goes, I'm just going to go through a quick personnel roster of the engineering staff and find anyone who suffers from acute arachnophobia.
It's quite coincidental that this is the second insectoid-based species we've run into here in the Sabine Expanse.
It's a big
Agreed.
galaxy.
It's a big galaxy, but this is a local area.
It's very possible that the cedars who planted humanoid life millennia ago throughout the galaxy might have not gotten out this far, and perhaps there was another species that seeded this, or it could just be incredibly coincidental.
Perhaps we're looking at the work of the Takan or whichever species created those damned weapons.
Considering that the Slaw were moved by a much more advanced species, I don't think we can infer if panspermia was a factor in this.
Agreed. Miss Sona, please bring us around to dock, and Mr. Panek, Miss Shatsu, please ask. I'll ask it myself. Mr. Beckett, please report to the docking hatch on deck 5.
Aye, Captain.
Yeah. Which means that I guess if Maddock is on the bridge, then no, technically Lieutenant Commander Murthrin outranks him. So Lieutenant Commander Murthrin has the con.
Okay.
Right, well, I'll ring up Chief Prag and apprise him of the situation.
So, as the captain and Shatsu kind of filter out into the turbo lift, they would hear Prag go, "What do you mean they're insect people? What does that even mean, Murthrin?"
Hang on, and Murthrin sends him a screenshot from the communication log.
Bloody hell. And that's where the scene changes. So I don't really have a docking port kind of map prepared, so we're just gonna use Theater of the Mind in conjunction with the transporter room, unless anyone thinks otherwise. So let me just put you in the transporter room.
I don't think our transporters are really designed for transporting people of that size.
Well, you'll see how big they are in a second. So let's see. There's Hoplite Phaon. There's Shatsu. Why can't... Oh, because I'm not on GM screen. That's why. Alright. So, Shatsu. Panek was coming. And Beckett. Beckett. Where is Beckett? There he is. Beckett. Might help if he was on the right layer. There we go. So, just the 4 of you, right?
I believe so. Plus the... Oh, wait, we're not in the transporter room.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Chief, but, my mind is elsewhere. Okay. Focus.
I'm going to drag Maddock along.
Okay. Maddock,
enough.
I'm assuming you have no objections to this.
No,
All right.
he's been doing enough experimenting on his own.
All right. So, the 5 of you go to the docking port and are immediately greeted by the individual you see on your screen. He is just big enough, or perhaps just small enough, depending on your viewpoint, that he can fit through your doors, but it's definitely a squeeze. Like, if you needed to run through the corridors with him, he'd probably get left behind because of his size. But as you approach, he kind of, I guess the word would be skitter, maybe? He walks, skitters, whatever you want to flavor it as. He kind of comes up to the captain and nods respectfully in a Japanese kind of way, is how I would say.
Very well, I shall mimic the greeting.
Well, it is a pleasure to meet you in person, Captain. May I introduce? And he turns, and behind you, or behind him, you see a pink carapaced female, and he says, "This is my second in command." Oh crap! Where did her? There it is. She is Joe. J-O, literally. And Joe just kind of bows her head respectfully and says, "It is a pleasure to meet you all."
A pleasure to meet you, Hoplite Phaon and Joe. I am Captain Barton Skull. Might I present my second in command, Lieutenant Commander Pinnock, my Chief Medical Officer, Commander Beckett, Engineering Specialist, Lieutenant Commander Maddock, and my Tactical Officer and Chief of Security, Lieutenant Shatsu. Welcome aboard the Ophion.
He cracks a smile as he looks around at everyone and says, "You're not all of the same species. That's interesting. Where is it that you hail from exactly?"
I am from a planet called Trill. Mr. Pinnock is a Vulcan. Lieutenant Shatsu is a Cation, and both Beckett and Maddock are from Earth and are called humans. The United Federation of Planets is a star-spanning federation, making up, at last count, 110 member races.
It's quite impressive. We're a very small empire by comparison. But he looks around, kind of takes in the situation and says, "Not to be rude, but maybe this should take place in more open space."
Of course. I'm just going to look at Shatsu and Beckett. Perhaps clearing the duck for this event would be a good idea.
Of course, sir. All right, and as I prepare the duck, where is the duck? There's the duck. All right, so Locke and Mirthrin aren't there. Sona isn't there. Those three aren't there. All right, move you guys over to the duck. And paste. He's not quite that big. He's about that big. Okay.
And sort of in the background, Mirthrin's sort of directing traffic and making sure sort of traffic jams don't happen on the way.
All right.
What? Attention all crew, giant scorpion monsters are roaming the hallways. Run. Run away.
Not
yourself.
quite in those words.
No, definitely not.
Oh boy. All right. So yeah, interestingly, since you guys put it in chat, so three of you do the, I guess what is now tradition, patting the head of the duck as you walk into, well, the duck. And Phaon just kind of watches all this and says, "Is this a Federation thing?"
Indeed not. I admit I myself do not fully understand why they seem to do this.
It's
superstition. It's for good
Yeah.
luck. Good luck,
Yeah.
good fortune, bon chance.
when all that stands between you and the empty void of space is roughly 1 meter thick of duranium alloy, one tends to wish for as much good fortune as possible, even if we may not believe in such things.
Well, now that we're in a little bit bigger of a space, he stretches a little bit, and you see that he was pretty much condensing himself at this point. So he's probably still about 1.5 to 2 times normal humanoid size. And he says, "I'm curious, the gravity that you have on your ship, is it standard for your Federation?"
It mimics that of Earth and most planets that bred the bipedal life forms that make up the vast majority of our member races. Yes,
Ah, you're bipedal by nature.
that is the majority of Federation species are. There's a long history as to why it is probably the case, but I won't go into it right now.
Well, I simply bring it up because, well, two reasons. The first is Scko's gravity, our home world. It is greater than this. We are used to much higher gravity both aboard our ships and on the home world, which kind of plays into your mostly bipedal nature, I suppose. Our form, and he kind of motions at himself and at Joe, it is well documented in our society that we owe our form to evolution picking out qualities that help distribute weight as well as serve as being the apex predator.
While this is standard gravity for most Federation worlds, we do have race members that belong to varying degrees of G. The Elasians are members, but they come from a low gravity planet. However, curiously, they are also bipedal.
Well, I would love to hear more about them. And as that conversation goes on, Beckett, if you want to roll me a reason plus medicine, I'm going to make the difficulty here just a 1. And let's see what you get.
Let me get my sheet back out since everything crashed.
Yeah, I noticed that you dropped out there for a little bit. Hopefully you didn't miss too much.
Yeah, I hope not. Just us running into them.
Okay.
You said reason or insight?
I'm going to say reason plus medicine because sensors are reason plus science. So this seems like a good equivalent.
Do I have to ask if xenobiology is an applicable focus?
No, it doesn't. Yes, of course it applies.
No, there's nothing strange new about these guys at all.
All right, so you get a momentum. So you're going to notice a few things on your tricorder, Beckett. The first is that they possess 2 hearts. As you might suspect, they have sort of a quote-unquote normal heart in their humanoid half, and that they have a much larger one in their kind of lower half, which kind of makes sense from a medical point of view because, you know, if it was just one heart, it would have to be massive to get blood to everywhere in their form. As far as you can tell, the hearts kind of work in an alternating fashion so that it doesn't stress their blood pressure too much. The other thing you're going to notice is that if you look at the drawing by Monorus, you'll see that they kind of have almost like a bioluminescence to them. Obviously, at the moment, it's muted, but you're able to tell that they could potentially give off light to a certain degree. Something maybe like a night light in intensity. The other medical thing that you'll notice is that... how do I want to say this? I suppose this isn't so much a medical observation as it is just a general one. You notice that Joe has a sort of ceremonial bow around her stinger, whereas Phaon does not have anything about his stinger.
A bow as in, like, it is bent, or a bow as in she is holding a bow in her stinger? Like bow and arrow bow.
I read that as like a little ribbon.
Yeah, like a ribbon.
Oh, a bow. Okay. B-O-W.
Mhm.
Got it. I thought
to make it cuter.
I know I said B-O-W, and multiple of them all are B-O-W, but I was picturing like a crooked tail, like a cat with a crooked tail. That's what I was thinking of. Okay.
Does Beckett's scan indicate any sort of venom or poison within the Singer?
That was going to be my next question.
Okay, I'll give it to you free because I probably should let it be free. Yeah, there is in fact some form of venom in the stinger. Obviously, though, without getting a sample, you're not able to determine how potent it might be. But I would say, sure, I'll say this, and you can decide if it doesn't apply. Beckett, you would know that normal scorpions, if there's any analog between the Skorpi and regular scorpions, the larger a scorpion is, usually the less potent its venom is.
Right. Okay.
Because then they get to rely on the gigantic crushing claws up the front.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that would be a good jump of assumption to think the same thing. Okay. And anything? Am I getting anything else about how our I don't want to say atmosphere inside our ship is affecting them in any way? Discoloration or the bioluminescence change when we went from the docking bay to here or anything like that?
I'd say the bioluminescence probably got a little bit brighter, but otherwise they seem to be functioning in your environment just fine.
Okay, and normal, at least for their human half, 2 lungs, or is there another set inside of the bigger body?
There is indeed another set, and if you had to guess, the lungs, while they can operate independently, they're almost sort of like redundant organs.
Okay. And that's for both of them, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
I'm quite curious, Hoplite, and I'm sure Lieutenant Commander Maddock has quite a few questions about it as well, about the form and function of your vessel. How do you prevent micrometeorites from damaging your sails?
Our sails are of a special nano weave that we then polarize. It tends to deflect most microparticles and other such stray things in space. Now, obviously, can't deflect, say, an asteroid, but we try not to run into those.
It's quite interesting. Polarized fabric, quite like the polarized hulls of our 22nd century vessels. More curious, however, is that your current stage of technological development, as far as we can tell, that you are able to reliably generate tachyons and use them as propulsion?
Indeed. Our quantum tachyonic flow burst projectile generators, out of character QT FPBGs, because you'll remember that, totally. They are something we've developed within the last 100 years. And I'll put it in chat just for shits and giggles.
And was this your species' first foray into faster-than-light technology?
Indeed. I would say that faster-than-light expansion is fairly new to us. Our empire is only 4 light years in diameter, radiating out from Scko. And most of our major colonies are along naturally occurring tachyon eddies.
Fascinating. And have you encountered any other forms of sapient or sentient life in your travels?
Personally, this is my second time doing first contact. The first was with a nomadic species of reptilians that referred to themselves as Uyt, U-Y-T. They declined a visit to Scko, though, and were pretty much on their way after we exchanged information.
I'll just make a note of that, just in case we decide to seek them out at some point, or run into them. The Uyt.
Mm-hmm.
Very well.
I'm quite. I'd like to know more about your size, your culture, and system of governance. Hoplite is quite an interesting title to have given yourself.
Ah, well, I obviously don't know how your federation works, but our government is something that I suppose, and this is more me saying out of character how this comes across in translation, more than him stumbling over his words. We have a democratically elected president, and we have a unicameral legislature, and our quote-unquote military, which is what I'm technically a part of. It is separate from that of the governance.
And your culture, what can you tell us about that? I see that you've what I believe is indicative of a female of your species along.
Run that by me again, because I don't know if I heard right.
I just wanted to know about his culture in general.
Okay. So yeah, he kind of turns to Joe, who would have come along with him, and he says, I suppose we can say that... How do I want to say this out of character? Our culture is similar to that of a sailor. We are, at heart, not quite nomads, but we have almost sort of a wanderlust about us. We strive to explore new places and experience new things.
As your ideal is shared most commonly by our human compatriots here. They began their sojourns into space much the same way. And I'll motion to Beckett and Maddox.
Let's see. I was going to ask you a question, and I forgot. I find it an interesting juxtaposition how you seem to hail from a predatory species, but yet your form of governance appears highly highly pacifistic. Did you have, or how did you overcome, or have you always been a docile predator?
I suppose it would be apropos to say that this isn't our quote-unquote first governance. Of course, I'm sure that might have been the case with your species as well. It took a few times to get it right.
Yeah, that's democracy for you. It's common saying in our species that democracy is the least worst form of governance that has been discovered yet.
It's an interesting way to put it. I'll have to remember that.
Might I interest you in various forms of beverage or food from our replicators?
Replicators?
Yes, we are in possession of technology that takes common matter and will recombine it to form a variety of food and drink that will satisfy almost any palate.
I would love to see such technology.
Very well. I'll motion over to the replicator and bacon cheeseburger, fries on the side, a dollop of ketchup.
Okay. So, sure enough, the burger kind of appears with all the trimmings you wanted. And Feon just kind of looks at this and he lets out a whistle of sorts and he says, that is impressive stuff.
Has his companion been quiet this whole time?
Oh yeah, Joe is kind of lingering behind Feon. She hasn't really said much, if anything at all, really. And she seems to be just kind of either waiting for Feon to give her permission to speak or for someone to address her specifically.
Well,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is her posture one of obvious subservience, or is it just polite silence such as Shatsu or Matic is doing.
Roll me a... I'll say either an insight plus command or an insight plus con.
Okay.
And the difficulty here would be a 2. Because again, you've been speaking with them for all of maybe 30 minutes, so you're trying to gauge based on, assumptions at this point.
Right. Would diplomacy count for a focus?
I'll allow it, sure.
Okay.
Hey, would you look at that? You got another
One
momentum. Nice. So, yeah, your best guess, Captain, is that Joe is not... how do I want to say this? It's not like the males rule the females or things of that nature. It does seem to be more in line with Shatsu and Matic. Like, they're here, they just haven't said anything because they would maybe interrupt the conversation kind of a deal. But you still get the sense that there's a definite sort of position or role, if that makes any sense. Like, it is not Joe's place to say certain things or act certain ways. Now, of course, whether or not that's a cultural thing or if that's just how Phaon runs his ship, you don't know yet.
Fair enough. Sorry, I think I was interrupting someone else.
Just while you're, dazzling him with burgers and fries, I'm gonna make it a point to walk over to Joe and kind of and begin discussing stuff with her.
Okay. Joe will... I was going to say, I forgot to get a token for Joe, and I don't really want to mess with it during the game. But Joe, again, kind of has a pink carapace. She has matching hair. It's sort of in a bob cut. And she seems very youthful. Or, I guess, to Panek, especially, she would seem like a... I guess a youthful spirit would just be the best way to describe her. She's very animated when you speak with her, and she seems very excited to be here.
We noticed that you move at a warp speed of what we designate 3, a warp factor of 3, and that it would take 9 days for you to return to your home planet. If your captain is amenable, perhaps we could have you there in a matter of minutes.
Really? What is the top speed of your vessel?
We move at something that's
Lost sound completely on that.
we move at what we consider designate a warp factor of 9, above 9.
Really? And how do you accomplish this?
We essentially warp the intervening space around us over a bubble that we create along our vessel.
So you
Up in the command here, Mirthrin is fighting the urge to not interrupt over the comms.
Matic will step in.
Okay.
Way that it works is in our engines, we have matter and antimatter colliding and interacting with dilithium. What that does is it causes a warp bubble to form around the ship. The space in front of the ship is shortened, and then the space at the back of the ship is elongated. And so that's how we're able to travel through space. I'm sure we could probably share plans with you. Thing I'm most curious about, and I've been looking up on this data pad, is the similarities between your ship and the Bajorans. You both have... They used to have solar sailing ships just as you do currently.
Really? I would love to see this data.
I hand the data pad to her.
Okay, so, she takes it, looks it over, kind of tilts her head a little bit quizzically to the side and says, Yes, this is about to equivalent to us. This is about 60-year-old technology.
Yeah. How long was the Cardassian occupation of Bajor?
Oh, geez, I forget off the top of my head,
It
but
was
50 years?
Yeah, 50 years, and then in game time, they've probably been. The occupation ended 15 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, well, the Bajorans were occupied by a hostile species that basically didn't allow them to do much. So they've integrated more into our. Okay. They've integrated more into using our systems as opposed to these solar sails. But I'm assuming if the Cardassians hadn't occupied them, there's probably a good chance that your technology would probably be equivalent levels.
well, obviously, you come from far away, so many of these things you mentioned are strange to me, but I think I understand the gist of what you're trying to say.
How far away is Earth from here?
From here, oh boy, I'd have to measure it on a map, but it's, if I remember correctly, it's well over 100, perhaps even 200 light years from here.
We can probably rattle off at warp 3 it would take this long to get there.
Yeah, at Warp 3, you're not getting anywhere close to Earth within several years.
Okay. Yeah, at your vessel's max speed, 3 to 4 years to get back to the planet that my ancestors are from.
135 light years.
135? I was close.
Okay.
Well, Joe will say, wow, you've come quite a ways. I'm curious, do all of you, well, how does your military, I guess, work? Is this a science vessel? Is this a ship of exploration? Is it a war vessel?
Our ship was designed at the tail end of a massive war between our Federation and a invading power known as the Dominion. That war has come to a conclusion, and this ship has been repurposed into once again a vessel of science and exploration. That is Starfleet's one of Starfleet's primary objectives is to explore. However, we are called to protect the Federation when needed.
I see. Well, and she looks at Phaon, and Phaon kind of nods, and she continues to say, well, I suppose it's a good thing that you're not from a warlike species. And she laughs a little bit, and I think everyone present would be able to tell she's probably a little bit relieved, but also a little bit nervous. Mostly because, again, you've been talking for maybe an hour at this point, so, it's hard for either you or them to really get a full gauge of what's jokes, what's not, etc.
Awkward laugh. Yes. We would be very interested, just not going to touch that comment with a 10-foot pole. Hoplite Phaon, we would be very interested in me heading to your home world. You mentioned that would be a 9-day travel. We can probably be there in 30, 45 minutes, if you'd let us take your ship in tow.
I don't have a problem with that. Though I will need to send a communique ahead of us, just so that, no panic is caused.
Of course. If you would like to stay here and meet more of our crew, you're welcome to do so. Mr. Panek, if you could take them on a tour of the starship and show them the good parts.
Aye, Captain.
I will head to the bridge.
Okay.
And on my way to the bridge, I'm going to tap my comm and diplomatic officer Zareed, if you could put your game face on and meet Mr. Panek outside the duck, you're going to have an interesting experience. Oh, yes, Captain, right away.
All right. So, I don't really know what map to put you on for this, but Panek, what would you show your guests? What areas of the ship?
Oh, any of the non security zones, like things that we just like absolutely can't show them. Obviously, I'm not going to have them run around the computer core.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe duck into a couple of the stellar cartography labs.
Well, actually, here's a question: can they even fit in the turbo lifts?
Yeah, I was about to wonder that myself.
It might be a one human, one score per turbo lift.
Yeah, I would say they're able to crunch themselves in there, but it's definitely not pleasant for them.
We'll do site to site for a couple, just a brief tour along some of the labs and stuff, and make sure to stop by stellar cartography to bring up a map and show them.
Yeah, don't forget to actually let them know ahead of time that they're about to be transported.
Yeah, I was going to say, they definitely have no idea what a transporter is.
Just a warning. This is in no way going to be damaging to your person at all. But we are going to dematerialize all molecules in your body and then rematerialize them somewhere else.
Do you say it with the laughing or without the laughing?
Oh, deadpan. Just like, don't worry.
Hoplite Phaon just kind of raises an eyebrow quizzically and says, okay, I'll just have to trust that this isn't a roundabout way to injure us.
This is just to better facilitate movement along our ship. Unfortunately, it was not designed with being such as your configuration in mind, and in order to make sure you're comfortable, this is just a step we'll take.
Oh, well, I guess engage this transporter then.
And I'll let the transporter room know, and then our destination.
Okay. So as you we'll say as you rematerialize in stellar cartography, Phaon and Joe, they kind of look around, then look at themselves, kind of doing a self-assessment, and then Phaon whistles again, and he says, "That is some impressive stuff."
Indeed. If you'll follow me, and I'll walk over to one of the consoles, and I'll bring up a map of the Federation. This is a current map of our civilization, and then we are currently located here, where we found you.
And of course, Joe and Phaon kind of inspect the information. Small sidebar: I did the calculation. It would take you from here 3.5 years at warp 3 to get back to Earth. So, small fact. Phaon does point out a certain star in stellar cartography. He says, "That right there, that would be where Scko is."
Interesting. You said that your empire is 4 light years long, and that you've developed this tachyon generating technology primarily because of these tachyon eddies that have developed in this region. What more can you tell us about them, or do you have any data that you could share? Air scientists would be most interested in this phenomenon.
Well, not on my ship, but back at Scko, sure, we can get you that information. Excuse me. My understanding, and again, I'm just a captain, I'm no scientist. My understanding is that these tachyon eddies were sort of naturally occurring and are many, many, many years old.
Were you able to determine if they're artificial in nature? We've come across quite a few phenomena that could possibly be not naturally occurring.
I think I understand what you're saying. We are indeed able to distinguish between our own tachyon generation and that of the eddies. But if there was something that caused the eddies, it either is way beyond our technology, and he kind of motions around at the ship around him, but perhaps you could scan for yourself and determine that.
I'll have to make sure Lieutenant Locke gets a chance to do such. And then we'll just continue with the tour or whatever.
Okay. So, as in chat, kind of again to keep things moving, we will say that Skull, Mirthrin, and Sona worked together to put to include the Skorpi vessel in the warp bubble, and we'll also say, for sake of argument, that Phaon does send off a communique to his superiors, so that when you show up in system, you don't cause a panic. But I am curious, how fast do you want to get there?
Well, it won't be at maximum speed because, we've kind of got tractor beams locked on another ship and we're extending the warp bubble, so how fast would we get there at warp 5?
Well, let's plug it into the handy-dandy calculator and find out. At warp 5, it would take 1.6 days.
Alrighty.
Maybe warp 6.
I'd say
All right,
sufficiently
warp six.
fast enough to impress them, but without destroying their ship.
Agreed.
I don't know what happens when you try towing something at warp 9.5.
And
Several smaller things.
also, I would like to use the ship's computers to keep a scan of their vital signs and compare it to what I took while in the duck, because some species don't do well at high rates of warp. And seeing as how they've never been over 3, and we are going to double that, just to make sure nothing happens.
Yeah, we'll keep a scan on their ship too, just in case.
Okay.
And Zareed,
And Mirthrin will sort of be in contact and go, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to slowly scale up and then back off if something starts to happen.
Zareed at this point, I'm assuming, has joined the diplomatic party.
Oh, yeah.
She's just going to walk up to Joe and go, "My God, your shell matches my hair. Is that a natural color, or do you dye it similar to how I modify my hair color?"
No, this is my natural color as far as I'm aware. She kind of laughs.
Most species of, or most insectoid species I'm used to are typically in the blacks, grays, browns, or perhaps multicolored. But I've never seen one manifest a bright pink. Tell me, how many different colors of shell are there?
No, well, there's all sorts. And she gives you the equivalent of the Roy G. Biv spectrum. So if it's an RGB color, there's probably someone of her species of such a color.
Oh, that's amazing. And you don't, as sad as it is, many of our species have passed where the majority skin color has often discriminated against those of other skin colors that make up a minority. Is that the case? Or has that been the case?
No, not really, but and she kind of smiles and kind of motions to her eyes. There is I guess you could call it a stigma around those of us with black sclera.
Oh. And does those sclera give you an evolutionary advantage?
Not that we've been able to determine, but the quote-unquote stigma is that those of us with black sclera are good luck.
And is that what's led you to join this crew?
Indeed. When I came of age, I applied to Hoplite Phaon's ship simply because I found his record to be impeccable. And sure enough, he took me aboard, and here we are.
Very fascinating.
Speaking of your biology, is your bioluminescence perhaps an evolutionary adaptation to burrowing or living beneath the surface?
It might be more an effect of our sun. She thinks for a moment and says, obviously, I don't know how luminescent your own sun is, but ours is, I guess you would call it dim by most stars' comparison.
Alrighty. So at about that point, Murthrin will start bringing the warp engines online and just going up to warp 3 and then smoothly scaling up to warp 6.
Okay. Well, good news is I'm not an evil GM today, and I'm not going to have you roll to see if things go badly.
I was pretty sure it wouldn't be a problem. It's just, exercising proper caution.
Yeah, it's fine. You're able to get your combined vessels up to warp 6. Beckett, they don't seem to show any abnormalities. As far as you're able to determine, they are weathering it just fine. But yeah, let's do this. We'll start the next scene and then we'll take our break. So a day passes, and we'll say during this day, you have further conversation with Phaon and Joe. And eventually, you guys will arrive.
Actually, something that Murthrin would want at some point is...
let's address that. What's going on with Murthrin?
Well, at some point or other, obviously Zenixia would know what's going on, and I don't know how interested would she be in meeting another insectoid species.
She'd be very delighted to.
Yeah, so at some point, Murthrin will either go up to either Phaon or Joe, whoever seems more approachable, and say, so we do actually have one crew member who's from an insectoid species, and they have expressed an interest in coming and meeting you.
Well, this is a day of sharing, is how I suppose the scholars would put it.
Alrighty, and he'll sort of tap his comrade. Alright, Zenixia, I think we're good to come in.
So Zenixia just literally pokes her head around the corner and says,
"Yeah, she'll sort of come around the corner and sort of excitedly chitter her mandibles."
Yep. Zenixia and Joe just kind of look at one another, kind of size each other up, and then Zenixia says, that's interesting. And Joe kind of raises an eyebrow, and Zenixia quickly explains, sorry, I don't know if your species has come across this, but mine is slightly telepathic. We're able to pick up surface thoughts. And Joe says, really? That's an interesting evolutionary trait.
And about that point, Murthrin goes, I didn't even think about mentioning that. Sorry. Empathic species here as well. It sort of goes out. It's not something you think about, really.
Really? Well, of course, I'm no biologist, and I'm not a doctor, but I'm sure our scholars would love to see any data you could share about this.
Oh, yes. Well, we've got a couple of telepathic species in the Federation. Even Vulcans, technically speaking, are mildly telepathic, although that doesn't extend to full-on long-range empathy. They have to sort of be right up close and physical, but...
And for sake of brevity, she does launch into 20 questions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, basically, so me, Zenixia, and Joe just have a nice chat about just stuff.
Yeah, stuff and things. All right, so when you arrive in the Scko system, you obviously drop out of warp on the edge of the system. Almost immediately, everyone is afforded a breathtaking view. Each of the 2 planets in the system has something very similar to what's on the screen. So they have sort of a nebula-like set of tendrils and gas that surrounds the planet and trails behind their orbits, kind of like streamers. The first planet, a Class D, appears to be uninhabited. Its singular moon, however, seems to be home to a small Skorpi outpost, or at least that's what your sensors say. As far as Scko itself, it is a larger Class L, mostly covered by ice and higher than Earth gravity, as Phaon has mentioned. Sensors, yes, the Scko system. Sensors estimate that there's perhaps 12 billion Skorpi living on the home world. Also of note, you are afforded a view of the Skorpi fleet. Phaon's starship is comparatively small, with the largest vessel on sensors being just a tiny bit bigger than Starfleet's Nova class. All of them sport the big solar sails, though the larger the ships get, the more the sails are integrated into the hull rather than sort of like parachuted in front of the ships. There's also several orbital installations, including an orbital tether complete with space elevator. And
fancy.
as you kind of approach the main, as you approach Scko, Phaon says, here, if you would give this authorization code, you should be able to dock with the tether, and we can go down to the planet from there.
Ooh, space elevator. Fancy.
Very well. I'll nod my consent to Chief Tin.
All right.
Are these planetary phenomenon that we see visible here, these tachyon eddies you were referring to?
As luck would have it, sort of. They don't quite follow all the way with the eddies, but they are sort of formed and, I guess, held in place because of them.
Yeah, I'm just going to look at Locke and just ask, Mr. Locke, can you tell me more about these eddies?
Right. I definitely scanned them as we passed by, since
Okay.
that was requested of me earlier.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you're able to determine that the bulk of the mass of the... How do I want to say this? If the eddies, quote-unquote, started at the planet, then the tendrils of gas and particles that are nebula-like follow it for perhaps maybe about a third or a fourth of an AU. But after that, there's not enough matter or particle or material for the tendrils to, keep going. So I think the word streamer is probably the best descriptor. But you are able to determine that the gaseous ones, obviously the light show kind of ones, are naturally forming.
The headwaters of these tachyon eddies does seem to be a naturally occurring phenomena, Captain.
Fascinating.
It's intriguing, but probably paradoxically prohibitive for their technology, since it encouraged them to develop solar sails. Might have sped their travel interstellarly, but is not a particularly long-term way of traveling.
I mean, it depends whether they have any easy access to dilithium or a similar regulator of antimatter reactions.
So I'm going to say this before we go to break. So, Locke, you just nonchalantly scan for any nearby dilithium deposits. And immediately, you find a absolutely freaking ginormous deposit of it in Scko. And I would describe it sort of like, so if you remember the one episode of TNG where the planets were basically shaking themselves apart because there was so much dilithium, that's kind of the same thing here, except for the fact that the Skorpi seem to have found a way to take that sort of mechanical energy that's produced when the dilithium crystal takes in the heat of the planet, They have found a way, either naturally or via technology, to dissipate that mechanical energy and use it as a power system.
Captain, it appears they're using the naturally occurring dilithium as a form of geothermal energy. Very efficient, but
I just laugh at the irony. So they're using. So what we're using for space travel, they're using to heat their cities. Fascinating. Mr. Panek, if you wish to organize an away team, please do so.
Captain. And I'll send the authorization code to the elevator.
Okay. So yeah, the Ophion does indeed dock with the tether, and this is where we're going to take our break. So 5 to 10 minutes, guys, and when we come back, we'll see how your meeting with the president goes. All right, so BRB. All right, I am back.
Okey-doke.
Oh, I should actually go get myself a coffee in the break.
So who else here at the moment? I think Panek, you're here, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
How you liking it so far?
Always like first contact. You get to ask interesting questions, I guess. Just hoping we don't get shot at like last time.
Indeed. No, I took a different tack with this one. I'll probably say this at the end of the adventure off stream, but I think it's worth mentioning that I'm a big softy for peaceful sort of first contacts, simply because I subscribe to the mindset of not everyone is Klingons. So I guess I kind of worry a little bit whether or not I'm lowballing the tension for a like an episode like this. But I think it's a nice dichotomy or sort of mirror of the full combat that we just had. It's kind of like a nice ramp down.
Yeah. But had we discovered this planet during the war, I think first contact would have gone a little different.
Oh,
A little
yeah.
more aggressively tried to get their dilithium from them.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
It's also pretty dangerous. Like, quite a few times in the novels, the Romulans and the Klingons both suicide dive into a dilithium planet just to completely wreck the whole thing because they can't have it.
Yeah, it's a colorful history, I'll say that much.
Alrighty, back.
Welcome back.
I'm here too.
Welcome back.
Actually, that probably was a conversation that Murthrin had with Joe at some point. Was so a number of humanoid species develop mild phobias of insects just due to what insects are like on most planets. What do large scorpion centaurs have phobias of?
I think she would probably tell you something like avians, so birds.
Makes sense. Note to self, make sure to put a password lock on anything by... I've forgotten the name, but the guy who directed the birds.
Hitchcock.
Hitchcock, yeah. Put a warning on Alfred Hitchcock movies.
I have returned.
Welcome back.
Sorry, what's their race name again? It's the Skorpi?
Skorpi. So it's
Skorpi.
the first half of Scorpion, just spelled differently. So Skorpi. I
Okay.
probably should have put that in Roll20, but
Skorpi from the planet Scko.
yep.
Gotcha. I was thinking about calling them the Skorpi, then I remembered, oh right, that's a Pokemon.
Yeah, I'm not the best wordsmith out there when it comes to names, but I went for something
Hey,
simple here.
At least we can remember these ones instead of like the Zavoisie and the
I can
Minister of...
remember that was he just fine.
Well,
Yeah.
it did take us a few times.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right. I think
And the Xenixia species is the Exchithis?
no. Exchithis is the ring world. They are. Oh God! Now I can. Oh, the Slaw. The Slaw are their.
That's
name.
right. Slaw spelt Slouth.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Yeah, I think we're all back. I think the only person I haven't heard from is Maddock and Beckett. We'll give them another minute. We've got the time.
Okay, Mike was muted.
A vast security is warning me that Google Drive is a phishing site.
Okay.
I mean...
Maybe Google has finally been compromised by the Russians?
Oh, who knows?
Testing out that link.
Mind you, if Google wanted your username and password, they would just easily take it, so... Really?
Okay, back. Welcome back.
Nice.
Oh,
I always
Google
love
has so
seeing
much
that
more than,
thing.
like, username and password.
Just gonna download that, and then we'll resume. Let's see. Deck
Go.
plans, expands.
Quick question.
Sure.
Who's the pulse rifle thing, or the rail rifle, or whatever, the alien rifle? Who's the owner, quote unquote?
I think it's just like in the weapons locker general requisitions.
Right.
Oh.
I don't think any.
So I would say Shatsu.
Yeah, I think Shatsu would be the one to talk to, but I don't think any player has claimed it.
Yeah,
The
I
other
think it's
rifle
just a
one.
requisition kind of thing for away missions.
I assume the GM would take threat if we were choose to bring it along.
Oh yeah, that is an escalation type item.
We bring it
Does
along.
it have
All
a
this...
stun setting?
No, it is a
No.
projectile-based
This is a
weapon.
weapon which specifically is not possible to put on stun.
Yeah.
You stun it by aiming away from sensitive parts.
There is also the Federation TR-116 rifle.
Yeah, which thankfully not many people know about it in character. I think Locke Shatsu.
Is that the one from the
connected.
DS9 episode where it's like a sniper rifle that can see through everything?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the difference is that that's a TR-116 that has a micro transporter at the front, but obviously the normal rifles don't have that. But yeah, I would say that if the Borg ever show up, pull out that railgun in the TR-116. You'll have a good time.
It might not stun people, but it might stun vehicles.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Just like, holy shit, what the hell hit us?
That rifle stun setting is when you pull it out and they see it for the first time.
Yeah.
Is Maddox asking about this? Or
Yes.
actually, Maddox would actually know about the 116. Because Locke would have tapped him to help him work with something for that.
All right.
And then Maddox also been doing research on the alien rifle, trying to see if it'd be possible to have the Daystrom Institute create something similar.
I think I said this to the players already, but I'll say it again just to be safe. You could conceivably replicate the components, but no one's actually tried doing it yet.
Yeah, I think most of it has been, holy crap, that thing can shoot. Let's not touch it again with the 10-foot pole.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I forget. Like, we tested it out and we had like something like 3 separate things of sort of escalatingly tough material, and it took the geranium to actually stop it.
Mm-hmm. It took quite a bit.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had fired that thing in engineering.
Yeah, that's why we opened the back of the cargo bay and pointed it at a sun.
All right, let's jump back into things. So you have docked with the tether, and I'm just curious, who's going on the away mission?
Maddox would, because alien technology.
Okay.
Zareed would.
Panek and I'm gonna order Beckett to come along. And Jester can come too if he wants. Or,
All right. Hold on. Let me get everybody. Let's get people on the screen. All right. So there's a Reed. There's Matic.
Do we need to do anything like put on a? I don't want to say exosuit because that would probably be the wrong term, but
I know what
is
you're
their
after.
gravity like a lot heavier than Earth, or is it like 1.5 Earth or something? Like it's an extra 30 to 40 pounds on us.
It's probably an extra 30 to 40 pounds. So it's manageable, but I wouldn't go sprinting any marathons in it.
Okay. So it's not like a human trying to go to the Elcor world in Mass Effect or something.
That's a good comparison, actually. Yeah. Okay, so I got Zareed, Matic, Panek, Beckett. Anyone else?
I mean, Murthrin will probably have to stay behind, so can I bring Xenixia?
You can certainly bring Xenixia.
Murthrin could go if he wants.
I
Sound
mean,
like we're going.
basically, it's a case of I think Xenixia gives everyone the puppy dog eyes, which kind of works. Depending on how cute you think insect eyes giving you big sparkly puppy dog eyes is.
There's no security, so I'd like to bring Shatsu down.
Okay. Sure, you can run Shatsu.
Matic is his own security.
Panek is completely unfazed by the extra gravity.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I think Vulcans are somewhat used to it.
Now, that's
Scene
slightly
change,
higher gravity
so I'm
world.
assuming momentum gone.
Yeah, this definitely is a scene change. There's been a couple, but I haven't really been keeping track, so 3 momentum is fine.
Wait, I didn't say anything about scene change. We still have 4.
And I'm sure Shatsu is. Beckett is also armed as usual on away missions.
Okay.
Just stating for the record.
Well, I think it's standard procedure that everyone at least goes down with a phaser, but I could be wrong.
Yes, actually, pretty much exactly that.
Yeah, yeah, good call, Captain.
All right. So,
Lucas the Spider is the gift that keeps on giving.
all right. So, the 6 of you, hopefully everyone has a supporting character if they're not particular in the scene. The six of you and Hoplite Phaon step aboard the orbital tether. Actually, backing up a small bit. So obviously, when you dock with the station and step out onto it for the first time, you see sort of I wouldn't call it a crowd, but definitely some gatherings of some Skorpi that are very excitedly talking about your arrival. Unless you would stop and like really listen to conversations, the general snippets you get are sort of like, "Ooh, I wonder what they're like. Oh, look over there. That's probably them. I wonder how fast it can go." Things of that nature.
So our universal translators are working relatively well?
Yeah, your universal translators are actually performing their job, which is a surprise.
If no one stops her, Zarita's just going to wave at anyone that stares.
Okay. Of course, there's varying reactions to that. Some sort of just excitedly start talking faster. Others kind of wave back, and others still just kind of tilt their heads quizzically to the side, like they don't really understand the gesture.
If I will, once we get down on the planet, I will tell Zenixia, just in case no one has said it before, if you get any feeling from any of these people that would be dangerous to anyone in our group, please let Lieutenant Shatsu know as soon as you can.
Oh, of course, of course.
All right. So now, with you guys aboard the tether, you're riding the space elevator down, and Phaon kind of motions at the surface of the planet, and he says, I think I've mentioned this already once before, but it's worth saying again, because out of character he probably addressed this already, but in character you haven't heard it yet. As long as you choose to stay on Scko, I will be acting as your personal ambassador. There's a great honor for those hoplites such as myself who are able to make first contact. Of course, my first order of business is to take you to see President Ocnus. After that, though, it's kind of, what you personally want to see.
As we're descending in the lift, is it like a glass elevator that we can see out as we're descending?
Mm-hmm.
What does the general... So there's 12 billion Scko or Skorpi on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that they're clustered together in large cities?
Yeah, so if you kind of look at the scenery behind the tokens at the moment, those are kind of what their big cities look like. They are more or less kind of stunted or kind of wide-based, probably because of the additional gravity. They probably can't build as high as, say, New York skyscrapers. That or they use a different material that is able to withstand the extra stress. But the background image here is, I think, the closest I personally was able to find that kind of matched the idea I had in my head.
Okay.
So a lot of very solidly built buildings.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
What are their armaments like? Are we under like heavy guard?
That is the other thing I forgot to mention. So, their ships have, I believe they are phase. It's whatever the NX class has.
Phase cannons.
Phase cannons. That's what it was. Yeah. So, their ships have phase cannons. They all have polarized hulls, so they don't have shields. And they're like hand-to-hand weapons. You see that they don't really carry anything like daggers or swords or things of that nature. But I think actually,
you need to when you have a massive tail.
Exactly. I don't think you've seen any Skorpi yet that would have some sort of a gun or phaser equivalent. Yeah, I would say that you don't know at this point.
I'm going to ask, or Zarita will ask Hoplite Phaon in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I could not help but notice the intricate patterns on your solar sails. Well, solar solar sail ships, sails, and that they're different from each other ship. Do you get to design your own pattern? Do they represent anything?
Well, yes. The ships are sort of generational in that they pass from family to family or within the same family. I suppose they would be the equivalent of a house crest.
Oh, that's fascinating. So your father or mother was the captain of your ship before you took over?
My grandmother, actually.
Ah, I see. And so your ship has been through several technological upgrades in its time, because obviously your great grandmother and her parents before her were probably not sailors, star sailors, if I'm getting the term right.
More or less. Yeah, it is a fairly new occupation, but it's one that we as a society and as a species, I think we've risen quite well to the challenge.
I'm very intrigued to learn more about your generational histories. I hope that there's large libraries with charts and.
Can certainly make sure that you get access to such things.
Lovely.
Considering there are 12 billion inhabitants of your planet, and most of your hemisphere is covered in ice, what kind of constraints does this put on your society as a whole?
Phaon thinks for a moment, and he says, if I understand the question, it's not so much that we're hindered by ice. In fact, our bodies are quite well designed to handle such conditions. However, if I understand your meaning, most of our major structures are subterranean.
I see. And of course, the matter in which you use dilithium to generate power, this enables you to continue with agricultural processes.
Indeed, we have vast underground farms that are heated by the dilithium.
It's innovative.
That sounds good, says Zenixia from behind, who was sort of snaking along a little bit slower than normal, because I'd imagine the cold isn't really agreeing with her.
Oh yeah, Xenixia's not having a good time.
Luckily she brought her like ceremonial stuff, and she's sort of using that to half pull herself along to keep up.
Yeah, that's a question we should figure out, is a exosuit for Zenixia, just in case it comes to it. Well, though it's been long enough.
As long as we get into the warm soon, I should be fine.
I now agree. It is very cold here.
Oh my god, you meowed.
When she starts licking herself, that's when roleplay has gone too far.
Oh god.
I'm doing that. If we had a webcam, I'm licking myself very furiously.
Oh god.
After the two of
the stream is cancelled forever.
Yes.
After we just completely broke Twitch TOS. After Shatsu says that, Beckett will pull out of his medical kit, effectively like we have nowadays, chemical hand warmers. And we'll kind of break them up and shake them around a little bit, and then hand one to each of them, and tell them that'll at least keep you a little bit warm.
Thank you.
Yeah, Zenixia finds somewhere under the shell to stow it and just sort of tucks it in there.
All right. So, with that in mind, the elevator finally reaches its base, and it is in such a city that you see on the screen. As you might guess, it's the center of the city. So when you step out of the elevator and onto what would be the equivalent of Skorpi streets, I think the best comparison actually is either Dubai or New York, depending on how much you want to put into stock how big their buildings are. Either would be a good comparison. And of course, you do get some stares and some inquisitive looks from Skorpi who are passings by. but nobody really accosts you. Nobody really makes a big deal out of it, or treats you like celebrities trying to get away from paparazzi. So you're being noticed, but you're not being mobbed, if that makes any sense. And as you proceed along the streets, Phaon points out a few interesting landmarks, monuments, certain buildings, things of that nature. But one in particular that he's leading you to, he says, and this building here is where we will find the president. I've already arranged with him for him to do a what we would call a ceremony of information exchange. This is where he will present you with a ceremonial tablet that will contain some information, and it is usually the same time that you would present yours. However, if you wish to, of course, hold off on such things, that is perfectly okay. I will say, though, that this ceremony would be broadcasted to the whole planet.
Zareed surreptitiously passes Pinek her standard first contact Federation info package pad.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. We have I have a data slate as well to present. Are there
Complete
any
with
other
orchestral remix of the TNG theme.
Narrated by Patrick Stewart.
Are there any other facets of the ceremony we should be aware of so that we do not create an incident?
Well, if you were Skorpi, I would say keep your stinger down and make sure that at no point you had it pointed at the president, but seeing as how you don't have such features, Phaon thinks for a moment. I suppose the only thing you should know is that if the president does bow, it is customary for him to bow the lowest. So don't try to beat him in bowing.
And I'll make sure I look at at the away team so they understand that, and then I'll say, I will endeavor to make sure my ears are not too offensive.
Fan doesn't quite know how to respond to that one, so he just sort of smiles and turns back to leading you on.
At the comment of, I will make sure that my ears do not offend, Beckett immediately goes, okay, I'm so glad I was here for that.
Zareed snickers and just sort of flips her hairs over her pointy ears.
Shatsu does nothing.
Shatsu does nothing. Yeah, it's kind of hard.
Can't.
It's just... Oh, dear.
Zenixia luckily is hard to read because, of course, she picks up surface thoughts, so she entirely gets the context of why Beckett is snickering.
Mm-hmm. Zenixia having fun. Anyways, so you are permitted entrance into the president's building. Of course, there are some security procedures. Without getting into too much detail, they more or less run you through like the TSA. They make sure that if you have any weapons, they're either stowed with the security people here, or that you show them that they are deactivated or otherwise properly... basically, so that you're not armed and going to assassinate the president. This would probably be the first time you would see any of the Skorpi with what would be the equivalent of a rifle or a gun. They are what I don't really have a good picture, but they're the same level of technology that Enterprise had as a series.
So, yeah, more phased pistols.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess everyone hands over their phasers. Zenixia hands over the ceremonial staff just to be safe, because, that might technically count as a weapon.
True. I guess the important question is, does anyone resist this sort of turnover of weaponry?
Matic is very hesitant in handing over his knife.
Okay. Well, the Skorpi who is quote-unquote running the checkpoint does assure Matic that you'll get it back. Just can't have you, such things around the president.
Shatsu pulls out the power pack from her phaser before handing over the phaser.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Beckett will happily hand over his phaser as he is currently holding the prototype that Locke built.
Okay.
I guess if everyone else is doing, Panek will be a follower.
Okay. So you guys hand over all your weapons, and once you have cleared the checkpoint, Phaon, of course, leads you up into another elevator to go to near the top floor where the president is. And when you step out of the elevator and into the president's office, the best comparison I could make, if you are familiar at all with the Superman animated series, the one in the 90s, if you remember how Lex Luthor's office was.
Okay.
It is
Large spherical with windows
That's a
looking out all over the place.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's also, because I think it's an interesting flavor, there is indeed the fish tanks as well. Obviously, these don't have sharks, but they do have some colorful fish in them. As for the president himself, Ocnus, OCNUS, Ocnus is a fairly well-built individual. I would say that he's built like a bodybuilder, more than he is, say, a sailor. So he has indications of musculature. He is dressed in I guess you would call it sort of like a robe. For reference, Phaon uses something more like a form-fitting uniform. So Ocnus, of course, in robes would look different. The other thing to note is that Ocnus's carapace and chitin is of a gray color, sort of a dark gray. And when you all step in and Phaon introduces you all, Ocnus comes over and begins bowing to each of you. And he says, esteemed guests, I welcome you to Scko. On behalf of the Skorpi people, I would like to extend an olive branch of good faith, cooperation, and good health.
We greet you in the same, and I'll hold up a welcome salute and say, peace and long life.
Ocnus tries to mimic the gesture, and he does a fairly good job of it, but he kind of waits to see if you critique him or say anything else when he does the gesture.
No, dead face. Not.
Okay. So he very quickly nods, puts his hand back to Marvel and says, as again, token of good faith, I hereby present you a data packet from the Skorpi people that should facilitate future diplomatic endeavors. And he proffers a pad, and he looks to Phaon, who then points at Panek. And Panek, do you take the pad or let someone else take it?
I'll take the pad, but I'll pass it to Zareed.
Okay.
Very well.
And then we too wish to present a packet of information in regards to our Federation. And then I'll offer the data pad to him.
Okay. He happily takes it, and he does a half bow. And
I bow. I bow.
Okay. He bows, and you bow as well, and then he says, very well. Well, now that that's taken care of, and you don't hear or see anything that would indicate otherwise, but you immediately, or at least Zenixia immediately gets the sense that you're no longer quote-unquote on air. But yeah, Ocnus just kind of says, so...
Given that Zenixia then sort of looks around for what looks like the closest thing to like a heating vent and just subtly begins shifting over in that direction.
Well, it's easy to find for her. So Ocnus says, what Phaon has told me is quite fascinating. You use dilithium for ship propulsion.
I'll kind of look over my shoulder and suddenly motion Lieutenant Commander Maddock forward. May I present Lieutenant Commander Maddock, our engineering advisor. He can answer any questions in regard to our ship's propulsion. Also present Miss Zenixia, our technician specialist. She is also a member of our engineering team, and coincidentally also comes from the Sabine Expanse, the local area of space that we've termed.
Yep. So Zenixia sort of comes up, sort of gives another respectful bow.
Mm-hmm.
Matic extends a handshake.
By now, I think Phaon has figured out what a handshake is, so he'll kind of motion for the president to take your hand and shake it. And he does. And Akna says, it is a pleasure to meet you both. I'm sure we can, hash out the finer details of it, but this is a momentous day, both as a member of the Skorpi people and as a member of what I hope to become a greater intergalactic community.
The Federation is always open to accepting like-minded species into our own as a peer, Mr. President. While there will be, of course, a lot of diplomatic envoys and cultural exchanges before such proceedings can be initiated. If your desire is to join the Federation, that is certainly a possibility. Or if you just wish to remain as cultural exchange or keep your sector of space within the Skorpi people, and just perhaps a trade agreement and diplomacy options. However, there are many. The Federation has many different ways of interacting with its friends.
Well, I'd be interested too.
Sort of Zenixia sort of pipes up and goes, "Yeah, they're actually being quite helpful on my home world."
Yes, Zenixia here is from Akshisis, a artificially created planetoid, roughly 40 light years to the galactic spinward.
Tell me more. And as you tell him more,
sort of Zenixia sort of immediately perks up and is like, "Oh, I get to talk about my homeworld."
Yes, exactly. So not to take away from Murthrin being able to do that, but back up on the ship, Locke, you're detecting an incoming high warp signature.
Can I recognize the type of warp? Is there a warp signature?
I think this would be an insight plus con. I think. But if you give me a good argument, I might give you reason plus science.
What about reason plus con? Because it's all about brains, but con is definitely seems the...
Yeah, let's do reason plus con. Sure, why not? The difficulty here would be a 2 based on the range. So this is like on the edge of your long-range sensors.
We have 3 momentum, so I'm going to spend 1 for an extra die.
Okay. All right, you get what you need. So the signature is of a Ferengi class, or a Ferengi Decora class Marauder, and it is headed in your direction.
Murthrin from the captain's chair goes, "Locke, is there something wrong?"
Would the captain actually be in the captain's chair?
Captain could be in his ready room.
Isn't the captain down on the planet?
Nope.
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought Murthrin was sort of manning the con.
Commander Murthrin, I'm detecting a Ferengi Marauder class ship approaching.
Murthrin sort of blinks and goes, "Oh boy, that is." Captain, can you come through to the bridge?
On my way. Ready room door. Status report, Murthrin?
We've got a Ferengi Marauder coming into system.
Approaching at high warp, sir. They seem to know exactly where to go.
Oh, no. Very well. inform the send a message to the Skorpi docking control that we will be releasing docking clamps, and I want the ship fully maneuverable to to deal with any potential Ferengi interference. But they have as much claim to this world as we do at the moment.
Should we notify the landing party, sir, Captain?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Scko to Panek.
One moment, please, Mr. President. and
Of
I'll step
course.
away. Panek here, Captain. Go.
We may be getting some big-lobed company. We're detecting a Ferengi Decora class entering the system.
At the mention of Ferengi, nothing changes on Panek's face, but it's at the back of Zenixia's mind, just at the very, very back, there's a tingle of irritation. Do you have any standing orders for us, Captain, or shall we continue with their diplomatic duties?
Continue with diplomatic overtures. The Ferengi have as much claim to the system as we do at the moment. However, we should be on the lookout for any opportunistic advances that the Ferengi may make against the planet.
Shall I inform the president of this development?
Yes. Yes, it's best that he get the full picture of what a Ferengi is instead of the picture that the Ferengi decide to give him. I'll send transmissions down to Zenixia's pad.
Okay.
Aye, Captain, will do. And then I'll step back over and join the
will be
group.
curious about this because I don't think she's ever actually met a Ferengi.
Nope.
Nope. No, she has not. Or not Zenixia's, Zareed's pad, I should say.
Well, Zenixa
Yeah,
would still
one
pick
of
it up
the
from
pads.
Zareed, so,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Okay. So, we'll say the away team, you converse for about another 20 minutes, and it's at that point that a beeping sound comes from the president's desk, and he says, if you'll excuse me. And he walks over to the desk, says to go ahead, and an individual says, President, we're detecting an incoming vessel. Our Federation guest seems to be moving already. Should we assume a defensive posture, sir? And the president kind of looks at the away team as if trying to gauge, what his reaction should be.
I don't know how much you can pick up from me, but maybe one of the others.
I put in chat exactly what Beckett does at the mention of Ferengi.
Okay. So Ocnus kind of raises an eyebrow and looks specifically at Beckett.
Well, if no one else is going to say anything, Mr. President, the species that is entering your system are known as the Ferengi. While they are not a hostile species, they are aggressively capitalistic with very few morals for how they receive their profits. While they will come offering you the world in shiny new technology, and they will offer it at prices at first which seem probably too good to be true. And once they sink their, if you'll excuse the term, claws into you, then they'll begin extracting every piece of profit they can out of you.
Mr. President, it's also worth noting that the Ferengi Alliance has no regard for the consequences of introducing such technology to your world, whereas the Federation implicitly has a directive against interfering in the development of societies and cultures such as yours.
And Zernixia goes, well, I can't really add much since I've never met a Ferengi, but I can say that every time they get mentioned, this lot seem to develop a mild headache.
Agnes kind of... Oh, go ahead, Maddox. Sorry.
I don't really know what the crew has been through with the Ferengi, but through the Institute, I've had my share of dealings with them trying to acquire experimental technology. So I'm relatively familiar with their rules of acquisition should they try to start boistering? I don't know. I don't know what the word is. Themselves around trying to seem more important than what they really are.
Posturing.
Posturing, that is the word.
That's it.
In essence, Mr. President, while we do not believe that the Ferengi prevent a security risk, if you would take my advice, it would be to approach them with caution, and as the humans of my crew are prone to say, a grain of salt. In other words, pay particular close attention to what they say and what they aren't saying.
Very well. So he replies to the individual on the comm, and he says, "Have a standard security response. I'd like a few ships between them and our planet, but keep weapons powered off for now." And the individual on the other side of the comm says, "Of course, sir." And moments later, I would say everyone, including the away team and those on the Ophion, you get a wideband transmission from the Marauder as it drops on the edge of the system. And the transmission is as follows. And I was going to do a Ferengi voice, but my throat's killing me, so you'll have to excuse me. So the message is, the Ferengi Alliance hereby wishes to engage in trade negotiations for the dilithium contained on your planet. I, Damon Ron, promise a fair and reasonable series of negotiations. And the message just continues on in a stereotypical Ferengi way.
That was actually a good Ferengi voice. That was good.
Yeah, I try. So yeah, my question is, how would you respond
The key
as
to a good
characters?
Ferengi voice is to practice saying the word acquisitions over and over.
Human.
Human. Oh,
Female.
God. Okay, God. Female. It's like you break everything up into two syllables and you always emphasize the first. Anyways, how do you as characters react to this message?
We should mention that your planet is extremely wealthy in dilithium. It is a resource that most other species would happily pay quite a lot for.
Indeed.
As the core resource that powers pretty much every starship in the Federation, it's a highly desirable resource, as Anixia adds in.
Fair and reasonable are not adjectives I would usually apply to Ferengi, though I have met a few on occasion that go against the norm.
Beckett will add, don't forget, you have what they want. If you were going to intertrade with them, you make them pay for everything that you give them.
It is a warning. Ferengi technology is not as advanced as the Federation's, but it is many centuries above yours. So what they might consider obsolete, will be very much a boost for you. However, you must be aware of the potential misuse of it and the dangers of the technology, as well as becoming reliant on technology that you cannot replicate.
Their government has also changed in the last 3 or 4 years to a much more lenient Negus, who does not place profit above other values. However, most of their society is still very conservative in their mindset and demand seeking of profit. Chances are this Damon Ron is similar in that mindset.
It would be inappropriate for us to continue to advise you in this situation. You clearly have procedures and protocols in place for dealing with this. But nothing, never mind.
Okay. Well, Ocnus says, I appreciate the input you've given thus far. I hate to cut our meeting short, but I think I do need to meet our new guests. And he looks to Phaon and he said, Hoplite Phaon, if you would see them back to their vessel, please. And Feon nods and says, "Of course, President. If you all will follow me."
Oh, so much for the tour. Jeez.
As the
I think
Captain-
as we go out of the room, Zenixia sort of turns to yours and goes, I noticed everyone seemed to be trying very hard to be as neutral as possible in their opinions.
Well, we may have a personal bias against the Ferengi. As Starfleet officers, we have a duty to not adhere to stereotypes and prejudices.
Ah, I see. Let them make their own conclusions.
I'm confident after dealing with the Ferengi for enough time, they will come to similar conclusions.
Lieutenant Commander, have you met a Ferengi that didn't fit the stereotype?
One or two.
Huh, lucky you.
Ferengi cannot be trusted, but it is advantageous for this Scorpionox to do what
Oh
they
my
can
god,
to
there are a
best
race of
themselves.
triple changing scorpion transformers.
They can get much from the Ferengi for offering very little. They do have quite a bit of dilithium to spare.
Once I get word that the away team's heading back,
Mhm.
Scko is going to send a quick message just down to the president's office saying that the Federation has experience in working with the Ferengi and is willing to offer themselves as a neutral third-party negotiator if there is any requirements as such.
Straining the definition of neutral there, but
Yeah. So, of course, the president will thank you and take it under advisement. But, yeah. So not to cut it, it was a good point. So not to cut your visit short. I mean, obviously, Feon will show you, sites in the city if you really want. The president was just mostly concerned making sure that he was able to make first contact in a respectful manner so that he wasn't trying to juggle you guys in the background.
I would be awkward.
Yeah, that would be a
Busy
little
day
bit
for them.
awkward. So let's see, how much time do we have left? Okay, I think we can get this in. So after seeing the sights, the away team comes back to the Ophion. And we'll say it's Alpha Shift. You're all on the bridge, at your various stations. And you're just kind of waiting to hear back from the Skorpi at this point. And it's one of those things where there's not really a whole lot else for you to do, simply because the data you've gotten from the Skorpi is already being looked at in science labs on the ship. But that's not something you do on the bridge. So things are pretty quiet on the bridge at the moment.
Block would want to scan the planet to look for any signs of alien technology from the Iconians or Ring World Builders.
Okay. If you could roll me a Reason plus Science, assisted by the ship's sensors plus Science. Difficulty is a 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Momentum.
spend a momentum here.
Okay.
I can roll for the ship.
Okay. Well, it's not like you need
I
to.
don't think I'm going to have to. Might generate momentum. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
We'll use it to blow up the Ferengi Marauder.
You scan it into oblivion.
All right, so you get your momentum back. So yeah, Locke. You remember the Ring World sort of caretakers, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
The one that you also saw on 8ML7 where you picked up the star chart and the rifle. You're detecting that very, very deep within the planet, near the core, there does appear to be such an installation. And there's no indication that the Skorpi are aware of it.
Is it helping to, for my free question for my science station thing, is it helping to regulate the dilithium to keep the core stable at all?
It is indeed.
Captain,
Fascinating.
yeah, I believe that the Skorpi are not solely responsible for maintaining their planet and preventing it from, well, exploding.
How so?
I am detecting similar technology to what we saw on ATEM L7 and on the X364, the ring worlds. That kind of, which are entirely different symbols on our glyph map. That seems to indicate that there's some sort of foreign technology in the planet, keeping it stable.
I'm going to wander over and just look over your shoulder. So it's relating to the dilithium. Some
Does
sort
seem-
of magnetic or similar field?
It's buried very deep. My sensors barely detected it. It's very likely that the Skorpi had no idea it's there.
Are we able to transport down there?
Out of character, the answer is you could, but given the difficulties involved, it would be a difficulty 5 task.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of rock. I wouldn't recommend it, Captain. I can't recommend that. I don't believe all the away team would make it safely there.
Yeah. Good thought. Well, just keep scanning. See if we can find a way down there. And preferably without the Ferengi finding out.
The Scko did mention that they have underground facilities. Perhaps we could use them to decrease the distance in transporters. We could set up a with the Scko permission, of course, after informing them of this installation, that we could install transporter pattern enhancers to relay the signal for study, of course. Also,
Naturally.
it would seem my suspicions that the Slaw and the Scko are connected via the unknown race that has developed this region of space.
I'd very much like to keep the Skorpi out of it for the moment, especially with the Ferengi. I do not want the Ferengi learning about this type of technology.
Yeah. Speaking of which, have the Ferengi made any move to try and contact the Ophion directly, or are they just ignoring us?
They are flat out ignoring you.
Yep,
Yeah.
figured.
We're not attacking them. We don't have anything to sell them. And Beckett has an exclusive deal with Quark, so he can't multi-vendor, so... Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah. I'd imagine at some point or other Mirthrin would come up with a report of, yeah, they're just sitting there doing nothing. Yeah. I do find it very curious, though, that we come over to investigate this place that's been sort of sitting on our to-do list for a while, and then literally within 2 days of us making first contact with the species, a Ferengi ship beelines it for here.
This is very disconcerting for me as well. Locke, Shatsu, please, let's just do a sweep of the ship, make sure that there's no illicit transmissions or listening devices, tracking bugs, etc.
Sure, we can do a nebulous roll for that.
Oh, actually, something Mirthrin's going to do.
Or it could be an
It's
extended
going to-
task, depending how you want to flavor it.
Yeah, he's going to go back and work out, okay, when did we first figure out this planet had an absolutely massive dilithium deposit on it, and then sort of work back from there and figure out when a Decon-class Marauder would have arrived if it had started coming here at max speed as soon as we found that out.
If you want to roll me a reason plus engineering, Mirthrin,
Yep.
difficulty 2.
Do we
And-
still have Feon's ship tractored, or did we let it go?
I
I'd
assume
assume
you
it-
let it go.
Yeah.
What about
Okay.
scanning that ship too?
Would warp field dynamics count as a focus for this?
I would say yes, because it would matter on the warp speed that they go at.
Alright, so control plus engineering. How much momentum do we have at the moment?
You've got 2.
All right, I'll spend 1 to get a third dice,
Okay.
because I would really like to know if we've got a mole.
Seems unlikely. We didn't. They'd have to have been particularly close because
Right
we didn't
on the
find
money.
out the lithium.
Okay. So, Mirthrin, your best reasoning isn't that you've got a bug. Again, best guess is that based on their arrival time compared to yours, what might have happened is that they saw a Federation ship beelining for this system, and they just happened to be in, well, what is relatively close by in a cosmic sense. But they noticed this, and they directed their attention to the system, and hey, they saw dilithium on their sensors and decided we should hop on that immediately.
Right, so I think Mirthrin will sort of say that to the captain and goes, well, good news and bad news. Good news, we probably don't have any Ferengi listening devices on board. Bad news, this might kind of indirectly be our fault, because based on the timing, it looks like what's got the Ferengi's attention was us coming straight into the system. Sort of they sort of saw, aha, the Federation is interested in this place for some reason, there must be profit here.
And we'll make a note that before we move to our next destination, we'll take a more exploratory path. In the meantime, well, let's hope that the Skorpi people's common sense is as good as our first intention indicates.
Well, they seem like they've got a good set of head on their shoulders. And Mirthrin sort of thinks for a bit, trying to sort of mentally decide which pair of shoulders is more appropriate there.
All right. So, there's a small time period where, again, nothing really interesting happens, but eventually you do get a hail from the planet. It is the president.
On screen?
All right. So, Ocnus comes up on screen and he says, Captain Skull.
President Ocnus, and I will bow as others seem to have formally done in the past.
Oh, well, thank you, Captain. I appreciate the gesture, but you'll excuse me if I don't do the same. There's kind of a desk in my way. I'm calling to let you know that I am interested in having the attaché you mentioned come down and perform third-party negotiation oversight. I took your comments, your away team's comments on the Ferengi under advisement, and though I cannot say for certain that they were all correct, I do believe it would be in everyone's best interest if the Federation was able to provide the third party in this instance.
That is very kind of you to ask, and we will be happy to accept. Are the Ferengi still present in your office?
No, I sent them back hours ago.
Very well. My crew has come to a discovery about your planet which may influence your decision-making regarding the futures of your dilithium stores. I'm just going to nod for Locke to transmit that information.
Okay. So he gets the information, kind of tilts his head and says, you'll have to excuse me, I'm not the best at sciences. What am I looking at exactly?
Long story short, there is, within this area of space, we have come across several instances of advanced technology. For example, Zanixia's homeworld, which I believe she went on at great length about earlier. We've come across other installations as well. So we're not sure of the function of this one at the center of your planet, but we suspect it somehow might be stabilizing or controlling all the energy being output by the dilithium. My crew is attempting to find a way to access the structure without impeding your society or tipping off the Ferengi. So needless to say, this might until we know more about what this structure does, it might be advisable. We would like to advise that you don't go wholesaling your dilithium just yet.
Of course. I'll, of course, forward this to our scholars to see what we can come up with. Thank you for keeping me in the loop, Captain.
Of course, and I'll arrange a small party to beam down to assist in the negotiations.
Thank you.
Diplomacy 101. Don't try to be sneaky and go behind the other person's back while you're negotiating.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, unless you had anything else to say to the president,
No.
kind of comes to a
What
natural
color is
conclusion.
Sorry, what color is his shell?
His is a darkish gray.
Alrighty then.
So yeah,
Discord background grey.
yeah, kinda. So yeah, you send down a diplomatic team, and at this point, it becomes a question of how do I want to say this? Not to stonewall you guys out of getting down there, because it is possible. It's just unlikely. Everything you're coming up with indicates that unless you were to, say, have Jem'Hadar transporters or Borg transporters, you're not going to be able to get safely down into whatever this precursor installation is. So if you were willing to take the risk, I'd let you roll for it, obviously. But as a GM, I'm more curious as to at what point, if any, you would kind of like cut your losses and move on.
Could we prepare a wireless, like a probe that would, and transport the probe down that is somehow, that could at least attempt interfacing wirelessly with what we can understand of their systems? Or at least something that would take a good 360 degrees camera picture and transport it back.
I'd allow it, but I would still make the difficulty of 4.
I wouldn't recommend interfacing with their systems, Captain. We do not want to accidentally shut the system down or trigger any kind of defense mechanism. Otherwise, boom.
Very well. Passive sensors and photography only, then.
Possible idea is the same thing that I did with the Argo shuttle. I could set it up on the holodeck where we send down a drone of some sort and one of us control it on the holodeck where it's our action, so we're able to scan and see everything in real time as the holodeck allows us to see what's going on down there.
Oh, like a persona.
Right.
When you mentioned shuttle for a second there, I was worried you were suggesting Mirthrin maneuvering this planet.
No.
It's like that TNG episode where they relay the probe into Geordi's visor.
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember that episode.
Along those lines, yeah.
All right, so here's what I'll say, because we are getting towards the end of the session, but I don't know what people's cutoff time is. We'll go for probably another 10-15 minutes, and we'll see where we're at. So if you'd like to try to beam such a probe down, where is it? Transporters. Don't care about power. This would be a control plus engineering, assisted by the ship's sensors plus engineering. The base difficulty would be a 4. However, I would like to spend my threat, as little threat as I have for this adventure, to increase the complication range to 16 to 20.
Mirthrin making the roll for beaming?
That or Matic. Either of them could do it.
Depends. What are we being?
I mean, yeah, either of us could do it. Mirthrin
Yeah.
or me, or...
So, like, what are we beaming where?
Beaming a
You
probe.
are beaming a remote piloted capable drone / sensor pod to the Precursor installation.
Alrighty. It'd probably be... will this be control rather than daring?
Oh no, it is control plus engineering.
Okay. And
Since it's the end of this, since it's the end of the session, I would say let's spend that point of determination.
Yeah, you just got to
does-
have a value.
yeah, would particle physics count here? Because I'm trying to beam through interference.
It'd be
Stretching
a
it?
stretch.
All right, no
Uh,
focus then.
Would quantum, if I were to do it, would quantum mechanics apply?
I would say yes.
Okay,
Alrighty,
so
Maddox,
I guess I could roll quantum mechanics, value, understands technology better than people,
Sure, I'll allow it.
and then we're assisted by the what? By the ship?
Sensors plus engineering from the ship.
Okay, so I can re-roll the d20 as well.
All right, well, you're set up to succeed.
I guess I'll go ahead and spend that last point of momentum.
Okay.
Who's rolling for the ship?
I may as well do it
All right.
once I bring the sheet up.
Everyone start praying. Let's go.
Alrighty.
There's 3, 4, 5, so we succeeded? Question mark.
So
Yeah.
comms plus. No, is it sensors?
Sensors plus engineering, yes.
And nothing from the show.
Let me double check. That would be a complication.
Re-roll it. Re-roll it. Re-roll it. Re-roll it. Re-roll it.
Which one?
The
Reroll
ships.
the ships.
Okay, yeah, I will spend a point of determination to roll
Nope,
that.
don't
then.
need to spend it.
No,
It's-
I
it's-
get it. I get it
it's-
as a talent. I
yeah.
get it as a
Okay,
talent.
you do that then.
Yeah. All right. All you have to do is not roll 16 to 20.
Oh, forgot to put the focus in.
It's a 13.
It's a 13. It's fine. Okay, so go ahead.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
My success roll less than would have been 17. If I would have rolled a 16 or 17, would it still be a complication?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Good news. And this is probably where we're going to have to make this a two-parter, which is fine. I don't mind. Kind of the bookend to this episode is, Maddox, you do your best to sort of coax the transporters into working properly. Because, you know, transporters working on a Starship show, or a Star Trek show? What is this? But you whip them in line, and you transport the drone away. And once it has finished materializing, I would say Locke, maybe, or Panek, or really someone on the bridge would probably put it up on the view screen. And all of you are afforded a view of what seems to be a sort of like a big ball of plasma being held in place by six sort of six projectors. So there's this kind of big old ball of red matter and energy that then has these projectors which, well, project a field of energy around this sphere. And the drone, as it looks around, is able to see a few consoles, but it is in a language that is unknown and isn't translating via the universal translator.
Does it map to the other languages we've seen?
It does indeed. It is the same symbology.
Can you bring Zenixia to the bridge, please? And bring Zenixia and Zari. Spent the most time with this language.
All right. So, of course, Zenixia comes up on the bridge, takes a look, and says, yeah, that would be the Precursors.
Are you able to make any of the language out?
If you could zoom in on quadrant 4B, please. And, of course, it does. If I understand what this says, something along the lines of stabilization matrix?
Okay. What are we able to get out of the ball of plasma red stuff in the middle there?
If Locke, if you want to roll me a reason plus science, this would just be a general science, though. This wouldn't be assisted by the ship. So the difficulty here would be, I'm going to say a 2.
Yeah, none of my focus is even remotely appropriate. So let's hope I get lucky. I do not.
Yeah, you either the probe just isn't sending back enough data, or you just don't have a clue what it is. Maybe both.
I'm guessing some sort of energy source, Captain, but there's just not enough to go on. Probe sensors just can't detect enough.
Very well. Accumulate all the data we're able to. And Zenixia and Zarid, if you guys could please assist us in translating as much of it as we can. I'd like to go down I'd like to present the president with as good a picture as we can.
Understood.
Captain,
Yes.
just something I've thought about. Considering the actions we've seen of this precursor civilization so far, we can kind of generate an idea of what they are like. They took the slaw from their home planets and placed them on an installation, and then provided the ability to generate the field, the security field there. And considering that this installation is the only occurrence we see of this technology on this planet, it's safe to say this was not the precursor homeworld, but they still felt the need to stabilize the dilithium here. So they tend to have you could infer a generous nature from this advanced civilization, almost a caregiver kind of thing.
I would have used the term preserver attitude, Lieutenant Commander, but I believe we're of the same thought process. These progenitors, my hypothesis is that the progenitors detected or were attempting to save burgeoning life forms to let them evolve into more advanced versions of themselves. It's my hope that they were doing it out of the kindness of their own heart or hearts.
I would not be surprised to find that they are also behind the anomalous communication nebulas within this area of space. We have yet to find an adequate reason for their phenomenon, and they seem to be abundant here.
Agreed. I can't remember if it was mentioned or not. Is there any link between... Is the technology between this planetary stabilization and the others that we found, is it related at all to the Pandora's Gate? Or is that a different technology altogether?
That is a good question. It has similarities. At least enough of a design philosophy that you could conceivably guess that, whoever made the gate probably was also responsible for the stabilization matrix of this planet.
I have a hypothesis, Exo. Given what we know, or what Madam Q showed us about there being a massive war millennia ago, and this race deactivated and dumped the weapons in a nearby galaxy. Perhaps they took great pains to save what species they could that may have been affected by this war.
That is an attitude that we've seen indicative of other war-torn races. As they become to realize the cost of their actions, they attempt to preserve what they have left.
Still, something for us to keep an eye open for as we continue our exploration of this expanse.
That would actually explain the Akshis quite a bit. If their home planet was destroyed or weakened because of the war, they might feel guilty and have relocated them.
So perhaps the Sabine expanse is the largest scale war rehabilitation effort we have seen to date?
The question still remains, Captain. What happened to these precursors, and where have they gone?
Well, I only hope we find answers elsewhere, but for the time being, we have a civilization in front of us that needs our help.
All right.
Let's get what information we can so we can assist the people from selling their own rug out from under themselves.
All right, and that is where we do have to end the session. So I got to end the stream. So players, stick around. But for anyone watching on YouTube or on Twitch right now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.